had started like any other. Just another dinner gathering where my wife Claire insisted I accompany her and her friends. I knew the drill smile nod at the right moments. Let them talk over me and accept my role as the insignificant extra in CLA's world. But I hadn't expected this. The red wine hit my face before I even registered the motion of Clay's hand. The warmth of it spread down my cheek, dripping onto my collar, soaking into my shirt. The restaurant's soft background. Chatter seemed to dim, and for a second the whole room froze, except for Claw's laughter. It wasn't nervous or apologetic. No, it was sharp, full of amusement, the kind of laugh that let everyone know she meant it. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" She sneered, tilting the wine glass in her hand, as if contemplating throwing the rest. Laughter erupted around the table. Some of her friends giggled into their napkins. Others exchanged glances, unsure if they should join in. One or two of them looked uncomfortable, but they wouldn't dare say anything, not against CLA. I sat there for a moment, feeling the wine seep into my skin, the acidic scent filling my nostrils. Every instinct screamed at me to react, to say something, to defend myself, to throw the damn wine back in her face, but I didn't. I reached for a napkin, dabbing at my face. Slowly, the humiliation burned deeper than the sting of the alcohol. This wasn't the first time CLA had embarrassed me in public. It wasn't even the worst thing she had done. But it was different. There was something in the way she looked at me, like she wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. She enjoyed this. I could feel all their eyes on me, waiting to see what I would do. Would I lash out? Would I storm off in a huff? Would I laugh along and let Claire win again? I did none of those things. I took a slow breath, straightened my posture, and calmly placed my napkin on the table without a word. I stood up, adjusted my shirt as best as I could, and turned away. The restaurant floor felt endless. As I walked out there, whispers following behind me, I could still hear CLA chuckling, no doubt making some comment about how dramatic I was being, but I didn't care. By the time I got to my car, my hands were steady. No shaking, no hesitating. I unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and let the silence wrap around me. The scent of the wine clung to me, but it wasn't just wine I could smell. It was the end. Not just of this evening, not just of this humiliation, of everything I pulled out, of the parking lot driving on autopilot, my mind replaying the last few months. No, the last few years. The cutting remarks disguised as jokes, the constant dismissals, the way she treated me, as if I were just another fixture in our home instead of her husband. It had been happening for so long, creeping into our marriage like rust on metal, slow and corrosive, and I had let it. But tonight was different. I wasn't going to wake up to tomorrow and pretend it hadn't happened. I wasn't going to let Claire sweet talk her way out of it or buy me a meaningless apology gift to smooth things over. I wasn't going to let myself believe even for a second that I had to endure this any longer. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my decision was made. This wasn't just another cruel joke. This was the last straw. I stepped into the house, locking the door behind me. The familiar scent of our home, a home that had felt less like ours and more like hers for a long time, filled my lungs. I walked past the framed wedding photos, past the expensive decor Claire had insisted on, past the perfectly curated life she had built. On my silence, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the darkened screen of my laptop. My reflection stared back at me, faintly visible in the dim light, a man I barely recognized that was about to change. I opened the laptop and pulled out a notepad, clicking the pin open with a quiet snap. And then I started writing. Not a letter, not a complaint, not an angry outburst, a list of everything Claire had ever done to me. Every insult, every humiliation, every moment I had swallowed my pride for the sake of peace. I wrote down dates, words, actions, things I had forced myself to forget, but never truly had. I detailed the slow erosion of our marriage, the way she had made me feel small. In my own home, the words flowed easily, almost too easily. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making her suffer. It was about remembering. Because for too long, I had convinced myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe it was just how CLA was. But as I stared at the pages filling up with ink, I knew the truth. It had never been me. It had always been her. And now it was over. CLA didn't come home immediately. I wasn't surprised. She loved the attention too much to leave the party early, especially after her little spectacle. She'd be basking in the glow of her moment, reveling in the laughter, replaying the way the wine splashed across my face in her mind. I sat alone in the dimly lit kitchen, my fingers tapping against the wooden table. The house was quiet. Too quiet. It hadn't always felt this way. There was a time when this home had been filled with warmth, with the sound of shared laughter, quiet conversations stretching late into the night. But that was years ago. Now the silence was suffocating. I looked down at the notepad in front of me. The list I had started earlier had grown longer. Every line felt like a scar reopened, a wound I had tried to ignore for far too long. Claw's insults had started subtly. At first, a harmless joke here, a teasing remark there. I had laughed them off in the beginning, but then they grew sharper. Claire, laced with an edge I couldn't ignore. Oh, don't bother helping you, just mess it up. You fix something around the house. That's funny. God, you're embarrassing. The words had built up over time, chipping away at me like slow erosion, wearing me down until I didn't even recognize the man staring back at me in the mirror tonight was just the final confirmation of what I had been denying for too long. Claire didn't respect me. She didn't love me. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. I leaned back in the chair, rubbing a hand over my face. The scent of wine still lingered on my skin. I needed a shower, but I couldn't bring myself to move. The front door opened. Her footsteps were light, almost careful, as she stepped inside. I knew her well enough to recognize the shift in her energy. She was expecting me to be in bed, curled up and licking my wounds like a kicked dog. She didn't expect me to be sitting here waiting. When she stepped into the kitchen and saw me at the table, her expression flickered for just a second. She masked it quickly, but I caught it unease. She tilted her head, forcing a smirk. Oh, come on, you're not still upset about that, are you? I didn't respond. She sighed dramatically, tossing her purse onto the counter. Seriously, it was a joke. Everyone was laughing. You always take things so personally. I still didn't say anything. That was when she actually looked at me, really looked at me. Her smirk faltered. When I held up the notepad, she squinted at it, confused. What the hell is that? I flipped. It closed and set it aside. A list. Her brows furrowed, a list of what I met her gaze evenly, everything you've ever done to me. Silence. For the first time in a long time, Claire had no quick comeback, no sarcastic remark, no dismissive wave of her hand. She let out a short laugh, but it sounded forced. Oh, please, she crossed her arms. Don't be dramatic, I didn't. Look away. Her amusement slowly faded. You're serious? I nodded. Something flickered across her face. It wasn't guilt. Claire never felt guilt. It was something closer to annoyance, maybe even nervousness. She didn't like this. She didn't like the idea of me keeping track of me, remembering, because for years she had relied on me, forgetting on me, brushing it aside on me, letting it go. I don't know what you think you're doing. She said, her voice sharper now. But I'm not in the mood for your little pity party. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on the table. You humiliated me tonight. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, it was a joke. You call me an idiot. You acted like one. I inhaled slowly. You threw wine in my face. She scoffed. You deserved it. And there it was, no regret, no apology, just justification. CLA had never seen me as an equal. I had been nothing more than a background character in her life, an accessory. She could dress up or ridicule, depending on her mood. I pushed my chair back and stood. This was the last time, her brow furrowed. What, this was the last time you'll ever get to humiliate me? She let out a laugh, but there was an edge of unease behind it. Oh, please, what are you going to do? Run away, go cry somewhere. I smiled, but it wasn't the kind she was used to. No, I'm going to make sure you never do this to me again. I grabbed my notepad, my laptop, and turned to leave the kitchen. Claire stood frozen for a moment before calling after me. Oh, so now you're just going to storm off like some victim. Grow up. I didn't stop. She hated this. She hated not being in control of the situation. Claire thrived on having the upper hand, on knowing what buttons to press, but tonight she had lost that control. And for the first time in years, I felt it. I climbed the stairs, entered the bedroom, and locked the door behind me. CLA banged on it almost immediately. Are you serious? You're locking me out? I didn't respond. Fine, be childish. Sleep in there alone. Her footsteps stormed away, and I heard her grab a pillow and blanket from the hall closet. She would sleep in the guest room tonight, fuming. I climbed into bed, staring up at the ceiling. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. The house was quiet in the morning, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that felt tense, thick, with the weight of everything left. Aunt Claire hadn't come back to the bedroom. She had spent the night in the guest room, no doubt stewing over the fact that I had locked her out. I had barely slept, but I wasn't exhausted. I had been running on something else, something stronger clarity. I stepped into the kitchen and brewed a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air. As I sat at the table, laptop open, notepad beside me, the list. I read over it again, not because I needed to remember, but because I needed to be sure. Every single line was a reminder, a confirmation of what I already knew. This wasn't fixable. I heard Ciela's footsteps before I saw her. She always walked with purpose heels, clicking against the hardwood floor like she was making a statement with every step. This morning she was barefoot, and yet she still carried herself with that same air of superiority. She stopped in the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest, her expression unreadable. So are you done sulking? I didn't look up. I took a sip of coffee, morning, Claire. She scoffed, stepping into the kitchen. Oh, we're being civil now. What happened to all that dramatic brooding? Last night I finally glanced up at her. I wasn't brooding. She smirked, but there was an underlying tension in her face. All right, you were making a list. God, I hope you realize how ridiculous that is. I didn't respond. I just watched her. That seemed to irritate her. CLA didn't like silence unless she was the one creating it. She thrived on reactions, on controlling the narrative. She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of orange juice, and poured herself a glass. "So what's the plan here, though?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "Are you expecting me to grovel to beg for your forgiveness?" I closed my laptop slowly. "No." She took a sip, raising an eyebrow. "Then what do you want?" I pulled out my phone and unlocked it. I could see her watching me, curious but still dismissive, like she was waiting for me to say something she could mock. Instead, I just pressed play. Her voice filled the room, sharp, clear, unmistakable. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" The sound of laughter followed the clinking of glasses. The humiliating moment perfectly captured. CLA froze. The video played on the camera angle, shifting slightly. It had clearly been recorded by someone sitting at the table. Someone who hadn't found it as funny as she did. When the video ended, I set my phone down. She let out a short laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Who the hell recorded that? One of your friends?" Her jaw tightened. "Which one?" I leaned back in my chair. "Does it matter?" She crossed her arms again, but this time it wasn't out of defiance. It was defensive. "So what, you're keeping a video like some bitter ex-girlfriend? Are you planning to do something with it?" I didn't answer. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Jesus, you're unbelievable. You act like I committed some kind of crime." It was a joke. I tilted my head. "Did it look like a joke to you?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. People laugh at each other all the time. Don't be so sensitive. People laugh with each other. CLA, not at." She scoffed, but there was a flicker of something in her expression, something I had seen before. Fear. Not because she thought I would hurt her? No, CLA wasn't afraid of me like that. She was afraid because for the first time, she wasn't in control. "Delete it," she said. Suddenly, I smirked. Why? It was just a joke. Right, her lips pressed into a thin line. I let the silence stretch between us, waiting seriously. She said, her voice lower. "Now, delete it." I took another sip of coffee. "No." Her nostrils flared. "You're acting like a child." I shrugged. "Maybe. But you're acting like someone who's suddenly very worried about a harmless joke." Her jaw tightened. She looked away, rubbing her fingers against the rim of her glass. "I swear to God, if you try to embarrass me with that video." I set my coffee down with a quiet, "Clink, you what?" She snapped her mouth shut, and just like that, the power shifted. For years, CLA had held all the control. She dictated the way our marriage functioned, the way people perceived us, the way I saw myself. She had crafted a narrative where she was the strong, charismatic wife with a weak, pathetic husband who was lucky to have her. But now, she was the one floundering. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "You've spent years making me feel small, Claire. You've torn me down in front of your friends, your colleagues, hell, even strangers. And every time I let it go, every time I told myself it wasn't worth the fight, that I loved you too much to make it a big deal." Her eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. "But last night," I continued. "Last night I realized something. I realized that you don't love me, Claire. You love control. You love having someone to belittle someone, to make yourself feel superior to. That's not..." I held up a hand. Don't insult me by pretending, otherwise," she swallowed. I sat back again, watching her carefully. "I'm not going to post the video if that's what you're worried about. I'm not petty, but I am done pretending." She hesitated. What does that mean?" I exhaled slowly. "It means things are going to change." CLA wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to me, standing my ground to me, refusing to play along. She tried to mask her unease with indifference. but I saw right through it. "Fine," she muttered, pushing off the counter. "You want to play this little game? Be my guest." She turned on her heel and stalked out of the kitchen. I didn't stop her. I didn't need to, because for the first time in our marriage, CLA was the one walking away uncertain. Claire stormed up the stairs, her footsteps heavy, each one laced with frustration. She expected me to follow her, to chase her down, to try and talk things through, to beg for an apology that would never come. That's how it had always been. She would cross a line, I would call her out, she'd deflect. I tried to smooth things over, and the cycle would repeat, but not this time. This time I stayed put. I picked up my coffee, took a slow sip, and let the silence settle around me. CLA thought she was in control of this situation, but she had no idea just how much I had already taken back. Because while she had been out, humiliating me last night, I had been busy. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my banking app. The numbers were exactly where I had left them. Half of our shared savings now securely in my own account, legally mine. Claire had always been the one who managed the finances, not because I couldn't, but because she liked to. She liked knowing where the money was going, how much was being spent, and, more importantly, how much power she had over it. She controlled the credit cards, the accounts, the bills. She made sure I always had just enough to keep me comfortable, but never enough to make me independent. That changed. Last night, I had transferred my half, removed her access to my credit card, and frozen our joint account. If she wanted money, she'd have to dip into her own savings. I locked my phone and set it down. CLA would find out soon enough. I turned my attention back to my laptop. I had already drafted the necessary emails to my lawyer, just preliminary inquiries, nothing official yet. But it was only a matter of time before this marriage was over. Because I was done. I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. I wasn't going to be the man she laughed at in front of her friends. I wasn't going to need her approval to feel like I was worth something. A sharp thud echoed from upstairs. CLA had slammed something. Maybe a dresser drawer, maybe the door itself. She was angry. Good. Let her be angry. She had built this entire marriage on the idea that I would always be there, that no matter how cruel she was, I would stay, that I would tolerate the cutting remarks, the dismissive glances. The way she spoke to me, like I was an inconvenience rather than her husband. But the moment she realized she was losing control, the moment she felt the ground shift beneath her, that's when the panic would set in. I didn't have to wait long. Minutes later, she came stomping back down the stairs, her face carefully composed, but her eyes burning with frustration. She was holding her phone in one hand, gripping it tightly. I didn't look up right away. I let her stand there, shifting from one foot to the other, waiting for me to acknowledge her. Finally, I glanced up something wrong. She let out a short laugh, but it was hollow. You think you're clever, don't you? I arched an eyebrow. I don't know what you mean. She lifted her phone slightly. My card got declined. I took another sip of coffee. That's unfortunate. Her jaw clenched. Cut the crap. What did you do? I set my mug down and leaned back. I secured my finances. Her nostrils flared. Our finances. I tilted my head slightly. No, CLA, my finances. I took my share. The rest is still there for you. She scoffed, running a hand through her hair. You think you can just do that? Just take half of our money, like you're entitled to it. I exhaled slowly, letting my fingers drum against the table. You mean like how you've been using our money to go on vacations with your friends buying things? You never even told me about throwing expensive dinner parties where I'm nothing more than the butt of the joke." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, you're still on that." "It was one night." I shook my head. "No, Claire, it wasn't. It was years of the same treatment, the same disregard, the same humiliation." She stared at me, her lips pressed into a thin line. "So what, you're just going to? What, punish me? Make me suffer because your ego got bruised?" I smiled. "No, I'm just done, letting you dictate my life." CLA crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic." I shrugged. Maybe, or maybe I'm finally standing up for myself. Her eyes flickered with something. Hesitation, uncertainty. She didn't like this. She didn't like that. I wasn't reacting the way I used to, normally. She would be able to gaslight me, manipulate me into thinking I was overreacting, convince me that I was the problem. But not this time. She exhaled sharply. "So what now?" I studied her carefully. "Now I start planning my future without you." "In it?" She let out a short, bitter laugh. "Oh, please, you wouldn't last a week without me." I smirked. "That's what you'd like to believe." Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced down at it, and I watched as her expression shifted. More messages, more people talking. It wasn't just about the money. People were seeing her differently. Now. I knew at least one of her friends had shared that video beyond our dinner table. And once things spread, they didn't stop. Claire had always been the golden one, the woman everyone admired, the one who could do no wrong. But now she was being seen through a different lens. I could tell, by the way her shoulders tensed, that she had seen something that rattled her. She glanced back at me, something calculating in her gaze. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "I am." She inhaled through her nose, her jaw tightening. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the desperate attempt to figure out her next move. But the thing was, she had already lost. She just didn't know it. Yet Claire turned on her heel and walked away. I let her go. She could plot all she wanted. She could try to twist things, manipulate the situation, find a way to spin this back in her favor. But it wouldn't work because, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't playing by her rules anymore. The next morning, CLA acted as if nothing had happened. I expected this. It was part of her strategy. Pretend the problem didn't exist until she could figure out a way to twist it back in her favor. She sat at the breakfast bar, sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone, looking as composed as ever. But I wasn't fooled. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tightness in her grip, the way she was deliberately avoiding looking at me. I didn't say anything. As I poured my own coffee and sat across from her, I could feel the weight of her silence, the brewing storm behind her calm facesse. She wanted me to be the first to speak, to break the tension so she could control the conversation. I didn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I sipped my coffee, opened my laptop, and started going through my emails. She lasted about 5 minutes before she snapped. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't look up. "You have to be more specific." Her jaw clenched. "Don't play dumb with me. My bank account is frozen, my card is still declining," and she waved her phone. "This video is everywhere." I slowly shut my laptop and met her gaze. "Oh," her eyes narrowed. "You knew this would happen." I leaned back in my chair. "No, Claire, you did this. I didn't tell you to humiliate me in public. I didn't make you throw wine in my face. I didn't record the video one of your friends did, and apparently the world doesn't find it as funny as you thought they would." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You should have deleted it." I arched an eyebrow. "Why, it was just a joke, right?" Her fingers curled around her phone. God, you're pathetic. You're actually acting like a victim. I smirked because I was. She stood abruptly pacing the kitchen. Do you have any idea what you've done? My clients are seeing this. My boss saw it. I got an email this morning about a meeting they want to have. They think this makes me look unprofessional. I tilted my head. Huh. Imagine that her glare was ice. You're enjoying this. I took another sip of coffee, my voice calm. I'm enjoying watching you deal with the consequence of your own actions. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. And what you think you're winning? What's your plan? Huh? Destroy my reputation, take half the money and run. Do you really think you're the one coming out on top? I sighed, shaking my head. Clay, this isn't about winning. It's about finally standing up for myself. She scoffed, shaking her head. Oh, please, you think you're some kind of martyr. You're still the same pathetic man you've always been. You think a few financial moves and a viral video make you stronger? I stood up, slowly pushing my chair back. No, Claire. What makes me stronger is realizing I don't need you. She froze. For years, she had held on to this belief that I was dependent on her, that I needed her validation, her approval, her presence. She thought I would always be there, no matter how badly she treated me. But she was wrong. I grabbed my laptop, my phone, and my coffee. I have work to do. She blinked as if she hadn't expected me to just walk away, but I did. I went to my office, closed the door, and left her standing there alone with her panic. I sat at my desk, exhaling slowly. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control. I wasn't sure how long I'd been working when I heard CLA on the phone. Her voice was sharp, laced with barely contained frustration. I don't care how it happened. Just fix it. She snapped a pause. No, I don't know who sent it to them, but I need it taken down. She was scrambling. I smirked to myself. She wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to people. Seeing the real her, I continued with my work, letting her deal with the fallout. Eventually, she came knocking. I didn't look up busy. She opened the door anyway. We need to talk. I sighed, closing my laptop, about what she hesitated, then crossed her arms. You need to help me fix this. I blinked. Then I actually laughed. She scowled. I'm serious. I shook my head. You don't get it, do you? I don't need to help you. I'm not your problem solver, Claire. I'm not your PR team. You did this to yourself. Her nostrils flared. Do you have any idea what this could cost me? I stood up, meeting her glare head on. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? My self-respect, my dignity, my sanity? She clenched her jaw. This is ridiculous. I shrugged, maybe. But it's not my problem anymore. She stared at me, something flickering behind her eyes. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw something close to fear, not fear of me, fear of losing, because for the first time she realized she wasn't in control. I picked up my phone, checked the time. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Do you need anything else? Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Instead, she turned and walked out. I exhaled, slowly gripping the edge of my desk. It was happening, the shift. The power that she had wielded over me for years was slipping through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. And the best part, I didn't even have to do anything. She was undoing herself. CLA was unraveling. I saw it in the way she carried herself. Now her usual confidence had dimmed. her sharp, cutting tone laced with something new. She was still fighting, still trying to regain her grip, but I could see the cracks forming. She spent most of the day on the phone trying to put out fires. The video had spread further than she anticipated, and no amount of damage control could fully erase the stain on her perfect reputation. I sat in the living room, watching as she paced back and forth. Her phone pressed tightly to her ear. "What do you mean?" "It's still up," she hissed. "I thought you said you could get it taken down." A pause. Her fingers curled into her palm. "I know how the internet works, but there has to be something we can do." She stopped mid-sentence, her back straightening, her head turned slightly, her eyes meeting mine. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. The silence stretched between us. Heavy and loaded, she ended the call abruptly and tossed her phone onto the couch. "Are you enjoying this?" I leaned back against the cushions, enjoying what she scoffed, watching me deal with all this. I took a sip of my drink. "I don't have to watch you deal with anything, Claire. You brought this on yourself." Her hands balled into fists. "You could have deleted the video." I arched an eyebrow, "and you could have not thrown wine in my face and humiliated me in front of your friends. Actions have consequences." She shook her head, pacing again. "It's not just about you. You know this is affecting my career. My boss is putting me on leave. While they assess my behavior, my clients are distancing themselves." She stopped and looked at me, her lips curling in frustration. "But I bet you love that, don't you?" I set my drink down. "No, Claire, I don't love watching your life fall apart. But I do think it's poetic justice that you're finally experiencing what it's like to be dismissed, judged, and disrespected." Her nostrils flared. "This is so typical of you playing the victim, pretending like you were some helpless little puppy in our marriage. I took care of everything. I built this life, and you controlled everything." I interrupted my voice. "Even you dictated every decision, every expense, every move we made. You never saw me as an equal, Claire. You saw me as an accessory." She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped because she knew I was right. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she folded her arms and exhaled sharply. "So what now?" "You just punish me." I shook my head. "I'm not punishing you, CLA. I'm just done letting you punish me." Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but she hesitated. That hesitation was new. CLA never hesitated. She always had an answer, always had a counterattack. But now she was losing, and she knew it. She turned away from me, grabbing her phone again, scrolling furiously as if looking for some last shred of control. I let her because at this point, nothing she did could change what was coming. I checked the time. "I have a meeting soon." She didn't look up. "Of course you do," she muttered. I stood up, walking past her, pausing only when I reached the door. "By the way, you might want to check your email." That made her head snap up. I left before she could say anything. I sat in my office, letting the weight of everything sink in the email I had mentioned, the one she was about to open. It was from my lawyer. It wasn't official yet, but the process had started. I wasn't just leaving CLA emotionally. I was leaving her legally. I could almost picture the way her face would drop when she saw it, the realization, the full weight of what she had done, finally hitting her. I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. She had spent years treating me like I was disposable, like I needed her more than she needed me. She was about to find out how wrong she was. I didn't have to wait long. Claw's reaction came just as I expected. Barely 15 minutes after I left her in the living room, I heard the sharp sound of her phone being thrown against the counter. Then came the stomping heavy, deliberate, filled with barely contained rage. She didn't knock on my office door. CLA didn't knock for anything. She pushed it open, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed, her face an unreadable mask. I didn't look up right away. I kept my focus on my laptop as if I didn't hear the door, as if I didn't feel the storm brewing in the room. Finally, she spoke. "You're divorcing me." Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't a scream like I had expected, but there was something underneath it, something sharp and dangerous, like a blade hidden beneath silk. I typed another word on my document, hit save and closed my laptop before looking up. Yes, her hands curled into fists at her sides. Just like that, I leaned back in my chair, meeting her gaze evenly. "No, CL there. Not just like that. This has been a long time coming." She let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, come on, this is over a stupid dinner party, over a little bit of spilled wine. You're really throwing away our marriage over that." I shook my head slowly. "No, Claire, I'm throwing away our marriage because I don't want it anymore." That hit her. Her lips parted slightly, her body going rigid. She had been prepared to argue, to manipulate, to twist the situation into something small and petty, but she wasn't prepared for that. She took a slow step forward, her arms loosening slightly. "You're serious?" I nodded. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She blinked as if trying to process it. Then, just like that, the mask was back on. She scoffed, crossing her arms again. "Fine, you want a divorce? Go ahead, but don't think you're going to walk away with anything." I smirked CLA. I already did. Her jaw clenched. "Excuse me." I picked up my phone, scrolled through my bank app, and then turned the screen toward her. She went pale. "You son of a careful." I said, my voice calm, remember? "Everything you say can be used against you in court." Her nostrils flared, but she didn't take the bait. Instead, she turned on her heel, pacing the room. "You think you're smart?" she muttered. "You think you've won?" I sighed, rubbing my temple. "CLA, this isn't a game." She let out a dry laugh. "Oh, it is, and you just changed the rules." I watched her carefully. CLA was calculating. Now that meant she was shifting her strategy. She wasn't going to throw things. She wasn't going to scream. That was too easy, too emotional. Instead, she was going to try and control the narrative. "I'll contest it," she said, her voice smoother. "Now you think this will be simple, that I'll just sign the papers and disappear. Oh no, we built this life together, and I'm going to make sure you pay for this decision." I shrugged. "You can contest all you want. It won't change anything." She narrowed her eyes. "You really think you have the upper hand?" I smiled. "CLA, for the first time in this marriage, I do." She stared at me, studying me, searching for something she could use. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She softened her arms, uncrossed, her lips parted slightly, and she stepped closer. "Do you really want to do this?" she asked, her voice quieter. Now I tilted my head. "Yes," she exhaled, rubbing a hand over her face. "Look, maybe we got carried away. Maybe things got bad, but we've been together a long time. We have history." I leaned back in my chair. "History isn't a reason to stay in something that makes you miserable." She hesitated. "You're really miserable." I nodded. "You've made sure of it." She looked away for a split second. I thought I saw something close to regret. But with Claire, I never knew if it was real or if it was just another performance. Finally, she sighed. "What if we tried?" I raised an eyebrow. "Tried?" She shrugged, forcing a small smile to fix this. I mean, come on. We've been through worse, haven't we? I let the silence stretch between us before speaking. What's the real reason, CLA? Her brow furrowed. What? I stood up, slowly walking toward her. Why do you suddenly want to fix things? Is it because you miss me? Because you want our marriage to work? She said nothing. I took another step forward. Or is it because you're afraid of what happens when you don't have me around anymore? Her lips pressed into a thin line. There it was. I exhaled, stepping back. That's what I thought. She scoffed. Oh, don't flatter yourself. I smirked. I don't need to. The truth is already doing that for me. She turned, gripping the door frame. You regret this. I picked up my phone again. I doubt it. She stormed out and I let her go because I knew deep down that she had already lost that night. CLA didn't sleep in our bedroom. She didn't even try to. I heard her moving around in the guest room, shuffling through drawers, opening and closing cabinets, making just enough noise to remind me of her presence. It was her way of making a statement. She wanted me to know. She was still there, that she wasn't going anywhere quietly. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the city outside. A part of me expected to feel something: regret, hesitation maybe, even nostalgia. But there was nothing. No sadness, no longing. Just Rel Lu. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. I turned over, closed my eyes, and let the exhaustion take me. Morning came quickly. The scent of coffee drifted through the air, but it wasn't the usual warm, comforting aroma that filled our home. It was sharp, deliberate, like Claire was making it just for herself. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the counter, her phone in one hand, a steaming mug in the other. She looked up when I walked in, her expression unreadable for a moment. There was silence. Then she set her mug down and exhaled. So that's it. I poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my time. What's it? She let out a humorless laugh. You're really just walking away from all of this. I leaned against the counter, meeting her gaze. I walked away a long time ago, Claire. You just didn't notice her lips pressed into a thin line. That's ridiculous, is it? I tilted my head because I think it's the most honest thing I've said in years. She shook her head, taking a slow sip of her drink. You don't get it. You don't just leave. It doesn't work like that. I sighed, setting my mug down. Claire, we both know this marriage hasn't been a marriage for a long time. You don't respect me. You don't even like me. She flinched just barely, but enough for me to see it. I continued. You liked having me around because it was convenient, because I made things easier for you. But let's be honest. If I had walked away years ago, you wouldn't have fought for me. She looked away, her fingers tightening around her mug. I waited. She exhaled, rubbing her forehead. You're really going through with this? I nodded. I already started the process. Her head snapped up when I sent the email to my lawyer yesterday. I said simply, it's already in motion. Her eyes darkened. You didn't even talk to me. First, I arched an eyebrow. Would it have changed anything? She scoffed. That's not the point. It kind of is. She stared at me, something unreadable flickering in her gaze. Then she shook her head, laughing under her breath. Unbelievable. I leaned forward slightly. Tell me something, CLA. She rolled her eyes. What if I hadn't said anything, if I had just kept going the way things were? Would you have ever considered fixing our marriage? She hesitated. Then she looked away. That was all the answer I needed. I exhaled, pushing off the counter. I'll start moving my things into the guest room today. It's only a matter of time before one of us leaves the house, so might as. Well, make things easier. She let out a short laugh. Wow, you've really got it all planned out, don't you? I shrugged. I had a lot of time to think about it. Her fingers drummed against the counter. You're not the man I married. I smirked. You're right. I'm not that guy. Put up with your crap. I'm done being him. Her expression hardened, but I saw something else behind it. Something closer to fear. Not fear of me. Not fear of being alone. Fear of losing control. For years, she had dictated the terms of our relationship. She had been the one pulling the strings, making the decisions, deciding how things would play out. But now, she was scrambling, and for the first time, she had no idea what to do next. She stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back. Fine, do whatever you want. I nodded, finishing my coffee. I will. She turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to, because no matter what she did, no matter how she tried to twist things, the truth remained the same. This marriage was over, and I had never felt so free. The day passed slowly, but the tension in the house was anything but subtle. CLA wasn't speaking to me not out of sadness, but out of calculated anger. She wanted me to feel the weight of her silence, to feel guilty, to second-guess myself. But that wasn't going to happen. I spent most of the morning moving my things into the guest room. Not that I had much. Over the years, Claire had made sure the house reflected her tastes, not ours. My presence had been reduced to a small space in the closet, a few drawers, and a single shelf in the bathroom. It was strange packing my things and realizing just how little of me actually existed in this house. I had spent years living here, and yet it felt like I was visiting someone else's home by mid-afternoon. I was nearly finished. My suitcases were in the corner, my laptop and personal files stacked neatly on the desk. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I was zipping up the last bag when I heard Clay's voice downstairs. It wasn't just her voice. She was on the phone. I stepped closer to the door, listening no Hunes being completely unreasonable. She said, her tone sharp. He thinks he's some kind of victim, just because I called him out in front of people. I exhaled, slowly shaking my head. Even now, she refused to take accountability. A pause. I don't know what he's planning. She continued, her voice growing more frustrated. But I'm not just going to sit here and let him make me the bad guy. Another pause. Then she let out a bitter laugh. No, Hunes. Not smart enough to pull anything drastic, she said. I mean, come on, this is him we're talking about. My fingers tightened around the zipper pull. I had spent years listening to Claire talk about me like that. Like I was less. Like I was incapable of thinking for myself, of making my own decisions, of existing without her constant input. She had spent our entire marriage believing she was superior, that she was smarter, that I needed her. But she was wrong. I stepped away from the door, deciding I had heard enough by the time I walked downstairs. Claire was off the phone, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. She looked up when she saw me. Are you seriously moving into the guest room? I nodded. Yeah, she scoffed dramatic much. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filling it with water. It's called giving us space, Claire. Something we probably should have done a long time ago. She watched me carefully. You think that makes a difference? Sleeping in a different room, you're still here. I set the glass down. Not for long. She went still. I saw the shift in her expression, the realization that I wasn't just doing this to prove a point. I was done. You're serious? I nodded. Yeah. She let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. So that's it. You're just walking away. I exhaled Claire. You walked away from this marriage a long time ago. I'm just catching up. Her jaw clenched. You're so dramatic, I smirked. You keep saying that maybe you just don't like the fact that, for once, you're not the one in control. Her eyes darkened. Don't flatter yourself. I leaned against the counter watching her. Why does it bother you so much? She frowned what that I'm leaving. She crossed her arms because it's pathetic. You think this is some kind of revenge? You think you're proving something? I shook my head. No, I think I'm finally choosing myself. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Instead, she turned and grabbed her phone, scrolling through something quickly. You know you're not going to win, she muttered. I sighed. CLA, this isn't about winning. She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, it is, and you're too naive to see it. I tilted my head. What are you talking about? She held up her phone. I talked to my lawyer. I exhaled slowly. Of course you did. Her smile widened. In surprise, I'm contesting everything. I didn't react. She wanted me to. She wanted me to panic, to scramble, to fight. That was how CLA won, by making people lose their cool while she stayed collected. Instead, I just picked up my glass and took a slow sip. She frowned. That's all you have to say. I set the glass down. CLA, I don't care what you do. Contest it, fight it, drag it out. It doesn't change anything. She studied me. You really think you're touchable, don't you? I sighed. No, I just don't care enough to play your games anymore. That hit her for the first time in years. I saw something flicker behind her eyes, something real fear, because CLA thrived on control and she was losing it. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. You're making a mistake. I shrugged, maybe, but at least it's mine to make. She scoffed, shaking her head. Yuke, regret this. I smirked. Funny, I was about to say the same thing to you. She tensed her grip, tightening. Then, without another word, she walked away. I didn't stop her because no matter what she did next, no matter how hard she fought, the outcome would be the same. I was leaving, and this time there was nothing she could do about it. CLA didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. Not one word. At first, I thought it was part of her strategy, her usual method of controlling the situation by making me feel uncomfortable in the silence, like I should be the one apologizing. But as the hours passed, I realized something had changed. This wasn't just her playing mind games anymore. This was something deeper, something real. I saw it in the way she moved through the house, her posture a little stiffer, her steps more deliberate. She wasn't stomping, wasn't slamming doors, or making a scene like she normally would when she was angry. No, she was processing. For the first time since this started, CLA wasn't reacting. She was thinking. I went about my evening as usual, making myself dinner, going through some emails, keeping to myself. Every so often I caught glimpses of her in the hallway or out of the corner of my eye, standing by the window, lost in thought. She was unraveling in a different way now. Not with rage, but with realization. She had spent years believing she was the one in control, that no matter what she did, I would always stay, always tolerate, always bend. But now she was seeing the truth. I wasn't bending anymore. I was leaving, and no amount of manipulation or contesting or power plays would change that. I was sitting in the guest room later that night, scrolling through my phone when there was a soft knock on the door. I knew it was her. Before I even looked up for a moment, I debated ignoring it. But something told me this wasn't another one of her games. So I sighed, set my phone down and said, "Come in." The door opened slowly, and Claire stepped inside. She wasn't dressed to intimidate like usual. No designer blouse, no perfectly tailored pants. She was in an oversized sweater and leggings, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look smaller, almost unsure. It was the most human I had seen her in years. She hesitated, glancing around the guest room. "So you're really doing it?" I nodded. "Yeah," she swallowed. I checked my email. I leaned back against the pillows, watching her carefully, and she let out a soft breath, her hands twisting together in front of her. "You actually filed." There was something in her voice that I couldn't quite place. Not anger, not even sadness. Just disbelief. Like she had never truly considered that this was how it would end. "I told you I would," I said simply. She nodded, looking down at the floor. "Yeah, I didn't think." She trailed off, shaking her head slightly as if even she couldn't finish the sentence. I waited. She took a slow breath and finally met my eyes. "I don't want this." I sighed, "Clay." "No, just listen," she interrupted, stepping closer. "I know I've been." She stopped, pressing her lips together. "I know I've made mistakes. I know I haven't always treated you fairly." I arched an eyebrow. That's an understatement. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Yeah, maybe it is." She glanced at the bed, then back at me. "Can I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from me. She let out a small, humorless laugh, but didn't argue. Instead, she sat down, folding her hands in her lap. A few moments of silence passed before she spoke again. "I don't know when things got this bad." I let out a slow breath. "I do." She looked up at me. I held her gaze. "It wasn't just one thing, Claire. It was everything. The way you spoke to me, the way you dismissed me, the way you made me feel like I was nothing in my own home." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I cut in. "You didn't mean to, Claire. You liked making me feel small. It made you feel bigger." She flinched, but I didn't let up. For years I told myself it was just your personality that you didn't mean the things. You said that if I just tried harder, maybe you'd respect me. Maybe you'd see me. I shook my head. "But you never did, and you never would." She inhaled shakily, her hands gripping the fabric of her leggings. "I don't want you to go." I sighed, running a hand down my face. "Clay, please," she said softly. It was the first time she'd ever said that word to me, and it almost worked. Almost I studied her, really studied her for the first time. She looked lost, but I couldn't let that change my decision. Because this wasn't about CLA anymore. This was about me. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "CLA, do you actually want me, or do you just not want to lose?" Her eyes widened slightly, as if the question had never even occurred to her, and that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't fighting for me. She was fighting for the control she was losing. She was fighting because she hated the idea of being left. But she wasn't fighting because she loved me. I sighed, standing up. "I think you should go back to your room." She stared at me. "That's it." I nodded. "Yeah." She looked down her lips, pressing together, her body tense for a moment. I thought she might try again, might say something else, try to pull another card, another angle. But instead, she just nodded. Then, without another word, she stood and walked toward the door. She paused in the doorway, gripping the frame for just a second. Then she glanced back at me, her eyes unreadable. "I'm sorry," she murmured. I exhaled slowly. "I hope one day you mean that." She flinched. Then she left, and I didn't follow. I sat back down on the bed, rubbing a hand over my face. It was over for real this time. No more second-guessing, no more wondering if I was making the right choice. I was done. And for the first time in years, I felt free. I picked up my phone and stared at the screen for a moment. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I smiled.